And is your mic muted, Jason?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for our May webinar. I can't remember how many we've done now. Must be on a fair few.
Must be well into double figures.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. And this evening, as you can see by the title, we're going to be discussing investing in and management of short-term and holiday lets. Your questions answered. I know we're going to be joined by a few people, regulars. I've seen a few names in chat, so thanks, guys, for coming on this evening. And we're going to get, there's going to be a few experienced investors and clients that we already deal with. I know also that there's a few new people on here. I've certainly got one mention to shout out, and that's a Paul Centre from speaking to my colleague James. So thank you very much for joining us this evening, Paul. And hopefully you find this of information of use to you. So we've got a lot to get through this evening. We're going to go through, there's a lot introduction to our speakers now shortly, and then we're going to run through just basics of short-term and holiday lets, bit of an overview, bit of terminology as well that I'm sure you'll hear us all band around this evening. We've also got guest speakers on Hilltop from Manchester, Hilltop Service Apartments, Lewis and Jordan, who are joining us. We're then going to go over to looking at investing in short-term lets and speaking to my colleague, Mr. Johns here, and talking about the ins and outs of what you need to know about buying a property that can be made use of a short-term or a furnished holiday let. And then we're going to be looking in detail about the management of short-term lets and what's involved in the management. So I'm Jason Guest. I'm the Business Development and Marketing Manager for Residential Estates. I've been with Residential Estates now for about 6 years, 7 years, and I've been in property for about 20 years. God, it makes myself feel a bit old. To my left, I've got Mr. Johns.
Hi, yeah, senior investment consultant. Been with the Residential Estates for about 7 years now. I've been in the industry for over 20, and I'm just going to look at investing in short-term let property and from that perspective.
Fantastic. And to my right, we've got Natalie.
I'm Natalie Griffiths. I've been with the company for 8.5 years. I'm the short-term lets manager and the office manager as well.
Fantastic. And last but not least,
cheers, Jason. I'm Steve Presley. I'm the short-term lets business development manager. I've been in property management for 20 years. I've been with the company for 3 years now.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. So, as I said, we've got a lot to get through, and we're going to start by just talking about a bit of an overview of short-term and holiday lets. As we go through at the back end, very kindly, we've got my colleague Rich, who's looking after things or logistics, and we've got Taylor as well, who's already posted there in chat, and Taylor's going to be posting links to useful information, links to brochures, downloadable brochures, website links, etc. That's all free to download as we go through. Yeah, let's crack on. Short-term lets, short-term and furnished holiday lets. What are they? So just very briefly, the word staycation there we've got there. So what's a staycation? It's a word that's come to the fore, obviously off the back of COVID and the pandemic. Staycation, a holiday spent in one's home country rather than abroad, or one spent at home involving day trips to local attractions. Now, short-term lets are not a new thing. They've been around for a long time. Obviously, I'm sure you've all heard of Airbnb, Booking.com, etc. There are other sites, but they've been around for a long time. And short-term lets and booking a place to stay for a couple of days, a couple of nights, etc., is not a new thing. But off the back of COVID and pandemic, and obviously the problems with people holidaying abroad, we saw a rise in people holidaying in the UK, discovering the country more. I know I've been away a couple of times and found a few places that I've not been to before, and I've heard quite a few people saying now that they're actually going to perhaps holiday more in the UK than they have done previously. But what is a short-term let? A short-term let is very simple. It does what it says on the tin. It's generally speaking a property that is let for less than what would be classed as an AST, an assured short-hold tenancy, or a long-term let, which is stereotypically 6 or 12 months. A short-term let can be anywhere normally, well, between one night, anything up to a few nights, a week, a month, etc. There are certain stipulations, though, to actually to qualify for a short-term let, and certainly one of those is that it has to be available for I believe it's 210 days.
210 days a year
in the year. So you have to make the property available for that length of time to the public to book, and secondly, that it has to actually be let out for 105 days of the year to qualify as a short-term let. But assuming it does those things, it certainly helps. There's certain tax advantages, etc., to do that. What are the differences between a corporate let and a furnished holiday let? Very, I suppose it's just the clientele, isn't it, and where it is. I the other time we looked at this, I was going to say, well, holiday lets in places where people holiday, but I suppose you can get corporate lets in those areas as well.
And vice versa. You can get your furnished holiday let could be a city centre apartment as well. People want to go on holiday in Liverpool, Manchester, and the city centres.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you get uses for both sorts. So that's all it is, but under the guise of a short-term let. It's very simple, really. There's not a lot to understand about that, but it is under a different contract, isn't it? In terms of an agreement, it's not under an actual set agreement as such.
No, so you've not got the set tenancy agreement. They just sign a contract to say they will stay in the property for X amount of days.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Okay. We're going to run through a little bit of terminology that you may or may not have heard, and we're going to use this tonight. I'm sure but just covering a little bit so we're all on the same page. Terminology, most common terminology you'll hear when people are talking about short-term lets. The first one is STL, abbreviation STL or STR, very simply short-term let or short-term rental. FHL is a furnished holiday let. We're then moving forward, we've got OTAs. You might hear a bit of people referring to an OTA. An OTA is an online travel agent, of which we've obviously got in brackets there, Airbnb and Booking.com. I think there's a few more though.
You've got TripAdvisor, Expedia, Verbo, HomeAway, Stays, Questions.com. List endless.
Okay, so lots and lots of OTAs out there. ADR, which is your average daily rate. Now, this is calculated by dividing the total revenue earned for the entire reservation by the number of booked nights. Basically looks at obviously what you're getting per night and your average nightly rate, the money that you're receiving per booking. And it's obviously very important to keep a check on that. Certainly, if you've bought the property for investment purposes, then you want to be making some money out of the property. It's an investment at the end of the day. So you need to be checking the average daily rate and make sure that it's in line with what everybody else is charging. Occupancy rates or occupancy level. That's the amount of people that have booked in a year. So again, it's an important level to be looking at. Benchmark, you want to be looking, generally speaking, we work on what, an average or a low of about 65%?
65.
Okay.
Average about 75.
Yeah. And then good is sort of getting on 80 plus.
85.
Yeah, 80 plus. Okay. A PMS or channel manager. So PMS standing for Property Management System. Do you want to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, that is where we manage all the short-term let properties through, everything from the bookings going in to the distribution of the rates and everything to all the different channels, along with your availability, so preventing any double, triple bookings if you haven't got a channel manager connected to all the properties.
Okay. And anybody can, I suppose if somebody wanted to do it themselves, they could get a channel manager. I'm guessing it's probably it's advisable. It's probably more advisable to look at talking to an agent, but it is quite important, isn't it? Having a channel manager or booking system, property management system. I suppose we've also spoken about this works as well when you're working with OTAs, doesn't it? Because it keeps a track of your bookings all in one place, doesn't it?
Yeah, pushes out all the availability at the same time, along with the rates to all the different channel managers and all the bookings coming from them.
So it's going to stop
you double bookings.
Double bookings, yeah. So if I put it in Airbnb and Booking.com, for example, then if I've not got a channel manager, there is that you run the risk of somebody booking on or two people booking on the same night. Yeah, okay. And the channel manager is there to prevent that. In effect. Dynamic pricing. What's dynamic pricing?
Dynamic pricing is a pricing software which can calculate your pricing. I mean, we'll go into it in a bit more detail later on, but it's something that's really important, really prevalent in the short-term let market today to maximise your returns.
Okay. So this comes back to the ADR or average
It
daily
comes back
rate,
to
and
increasing your ADRs.
increasing the ADR.
And it just looks at pricing and algorithms over periods of time, and when it needs to increase your prices, it does it automatically for you. Otherwise, you could be stuck there every day going into your pricing and amending it accordingly.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. Relocation agent. Now, a relocation agent is somebody that we work with in a lot of companies now, large companies, when they have employees who want to book accommodation for their employees. They won't come to the likes of us or a management company. They won't even use an independent landlord, or they won't go on Airbnb or Booking.com. They will go to a relocation agent, and then a relocation agent will send that request out to tender to the relevant agents that they've got on their books. Is that really sum it up?
What you said on the tin there. You know, I mean, some of the major companies now, one we know is Amazon, who only use one relocation agent, but those relocation agents won't go to independent owners anymore, and they prefer to go to people, managing agents who have a number of properties. So it's really important to get in with them and to understand how they work.
Okay, fantastic. Minimum stay. So minimum stay is obviously, we've put in there, worth considering a minimum of 2 or 3 nights stay. The minimum stay is obviously the minimum amount of nights that you will allow people to book your property for when you're advertising it. Now, generally as a company, I believe we work on a minimum of a 2-night stay. 2 or 3 nights stay. It depends on the property.
Yeah.
But you have to consider that if you're allowing 1-night stays, depending on where the property is, that's where potentially you could get people booking for parties, hen do's, stag parties, and things like that. Whereas if you set a minimum of a 2-night stay, it can dramatically reduce the chances of people using the property as a party location or something like that. And it just, it provides a bit more serious to the booking. It shows people, they want to stay there longer than just 1 night. And if you can get 2 or 3 night stays or longer, then obviously that's the aim, rather than getting 1 night stays. Also, 1 night stays tend not to be as lucrative because you have to have the property cleaned.
You still have your cleaning fee on top. So if you think as a guest, you could be paying £100 a night, but then your cleaning fee on top. So it's more. It's better for them to book 2 or 3 nights anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Booking window, and this is the obviously we've got a tip there. Have a cancellation period policy. The booking window is the period of time between the person's booked and the time that the actual stay is due to commence. And then obviously we've got there, have a cancellation period policy, because you don't want people booking the property up 2-3 months in advance, and then so nobody else can book it, and then they just pull out. So I presume there is a cancellation policy that we run and other people run. I suppose they differ, do they? But is there a general?
Generally, it would be about 14 days is what we run. Some of our clients ask for it to be a bit lower, but as a standard, we would put it to 14 days.
Okay. And do you get any issues with cancellations?
Well, you're always going to get cancellations. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that happen with short-term lets. People's plans change from time to time. Yeah. But if you allow yourself those 14-day booking window, you've got time to fill it up again prior to that date arriving. Yeah.
So have a cancellation period policy. You don't want to leave it all the way and let them allow to cancel.
You don't want them to cancel 24 hours in advance, and then you're stuck.
Yeah. Okay. And yield is obviously referring to the yield that the property or the money that you're making as an investment. Like any investment, the yield is obviously the in effect the profit that you will be making after you've purchased property and what money you're making after all costs, which Mr. Johns is going to go through in a bit more detail when we get to your section, I believe. So at this point, I want to introduce our guest speakers. We've got Lewis and Jordan from Hilltop Service Apartments over in Manchester. So, guys, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Really good to see
No
you.
problem. Yeah, hi guys, good to see you. Thanks, Jason, for the introduction. So yeah, hi everyone. Just to give you a bit of background about ourselves, my name's Lewis. I'm the director of Hilltop Service Apartments based in Manchester. I've been involved in property for about the last 8 years and short-term let properties for around the last 3. We currently have 27 serviced apartments based in Manchester, which are a mixture of studios, 1 beds, 2 beds, and some 3 beds, all based around the city, in the centre of Manchester, right in the middle, basically. So we originally became interested in short lets after attending a sort of like a conference, similar to this one, really.
Were you in lettings? Were you in lettings before? Or did
We
you have
did a little bit of experience. We've got some HMOs that we had in the past that we've still got now. But yeah, it was only, I'd say, the last 3 years that we've been interested in short lets, really.
And what when you went to that seminar, what made you decide that was the way forward for you?
It was the comparison between a standard buy-to-let and what a short-term let property can actually make. That was one of the biggest distinctions for us, really. And just the type of industry we liked as well. We thought we'd be good at it. So yeah, we sort of just jumped in at the deep end, really. And here we are.
So you're over in Manchester. So how's things over there in terms of short-term lets and what's happening on the short-term let side of things? I know residential estates and you know, we've got this relationship. I know we speak and we've dealt with a few developments ourselves, you know, as a group. But how are you finding things?
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, that's one thing that I actually wanted to touch on, and I think you guys have brought it up as well, and it'll come up again, but it's more the last 2 years and where we've been because of COVID and what's happened. And a lot of people at the moment think it's a bad time to get into short-term lets because of COVID and it's so risky. And whereas it's not actually the case at this moment in time, and I believe, obviously, you know, because we're in the sector, that we've come out of it quite a lot stronger. And I actually think COVID has been more of a blessing in disguise because people only had the option to do a staycation. And I think with a lot of the guests that we talk to, it's almost become the norm for people now to go away in the UK. And myself personally, throughout COVID, I think I went to Wales and Cornwall, and I've actually booked another summer holiday this year, and I've opted to stay in the UK again. So I think it's fast becoming a trend to actually go away in the UK rather than abroad. And because of that, actually, like I said, it's sort of become a blessing in disguise, COVID, because the rates we're achieving at the moment are a lot stronger and a lot higher than pre-COVID. And obviously COVID was a bad time for the industry, but where we are now is in a very good spot. Yeah, it's a good time to get in it. I mean, yeah, it couldn't be a better time, really. In terms of market conditions, we're hopefully, you know, we've seen the last of COVID and there's not going to be any more issues with that. Yeah. So in terms of the occupancy rates we're achieving as well at the moment, obviously you were touching on it, 75% is very good. 80 is even better. Across the board, across our 26 apartments, we've been achieving occupancy rates of higher than 90% for the last 6 months, which is what you get throughout the summer, and that's obviously the winter period. So just taking them things into account and the rates we're achieving,
Yeah, well, and in terms of obviously the area in Manchester, I believe you're also looking at branching out as well and out of Manchester.
We are, yeah. So we're looking nationwide, really. We're pretty much looking all over. I know, obviously, we've spoke to you guys regarding a couple of properties in Chester that we're looking at. But yeah, we're not solely focused just in Manchester, and short-term lets isn't just for one area. You know, it can work up and down the country, but you need to make sure you get the right property, you advertise it properly, and you have the right team to run it for you as well. You know, I wouldn't recommend to anyone really just purchasing a property off Rightmove and thinking they can do everything themselves. It is a lot of hard work, and it's where, like I said, having the right team, it's really going to ensure your success, really. It's as simple as that. You literally can't do it all on your own. Like you guys touched on in the first few slides, there's a lot of things to get right to make it successful, but they can easily be done wrong as well, especially if you've got no experience. You know, stuff like the type of property. If it was me personally, I probably wouldn't invest in an area that I didn't know, or I didn't know someone who's already operating short-term lets. It's just to ask them their feedback. Because I do know people, we've spoke to people that have thought they can just buy a property, they can refurb it, you know, they can buy some pricing software, press go, and they can watch the money flow in. And it's definitely not the case. It really is sort of like an experience. It's having the team and the knowledge. Yeah, it's having the team and it definitely makes a massive difference, 100%. I mean, the area as well, people just think, you know, they can buy an area, any type of area, and it will work for short lets. It can be the case, but really what you want to be doing is thinking about your target market, who will be in the property, you know, not just buying a house in the just on the beach, assuming that it will do well, because sometimes they really don't. And there can be areas that are overpopulated as well. So it really does pay to know your tenant, obviously know your target market, and just make sure you're getting the right property to fit the type of guest that you're looking for. And also as well, what type of platforms you'll be advertising on. You guys touched on it. You know, there's so many, you know, Expedia, Airbnb. Some of them look really good, but if you were to ask us, they're probably not worth advertising on. Some are really great and they are worth advertising on. But if you didn't know that and you thought, oh, I'll just list my property on every single one, it's probably not the best thing to be doing. It. Yeah, as soon as you get into the sector, you can spend a lot of time going down the wrong path. And it can take a long time to get back on the right path and starting off on the right foot. We've done it. We started out. We did it the wrong way. We learned the hard way. Yeah. And yeah, there's definitely easier ways to do it by speaking to people like yourselves who've got experience. Yeah. But in terms of the area, Manchester, like I said, that's where we are at the moment. Chester, hopefully, will be our next port of call. We obviously love the city, so yeah, we'll see. And obviously, the sort of knowledge and the advice that we've had from you guys has been good. So yeah, we're in Manchester, hopefully soon to be Chester. So yeah.
So in terms of you're not actually taking properties on, are you, as such? But you've got properties to let out, and I believe you are more than happy to, obviously, if somebody's got questions about Manchester or whatever, then I'm sure you'd be more than happy to help them in terms of answering anything.
Yeah, so just to be clear, we don't take people's properties on to take care of. That's just not what we do. But yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to ask us some questions, send us something over on LinkedIn. You know, just reach out to us and speak to us. We'll be more than happy to help you. If you're interested in the market up where we are, you know, we can help you out. If you've got some concerns about the area or type of property, you know, I'm happy for you to send it us and we can have a look and hopefully give you our advice on it. Yeah, that's one thing as well. Even the area, you know, if you're looking at the centre of Manchester or on the outskirts, don't necessarily assume that because it's near the city centre or in the city centre that it's going to be good. Like, it doesn't matter where you go, there'll still be pockets where it will work and where it won't work. But yeah, if you've got any questions, it doesn't have to be about the area. It could be about absolutely anything. Yeah, we'll put the LinkedIn's in the chat at the end, Jason. We'll send them over now to Tyler in the background, and then you can then you can post them on there if anyone wants to reach out.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. We'll get Taylor will put your web address in the chat as well. So if anybody does actually want to speak to you guys about, you know, got any questions at all, then they can reach you there. In terms of Manchester now, and obviously we just touched briefly there on location. Is there anywhere in particular that you find is better than the other in Manchester as an area, or does it not matter? I mean, you mentioned pockets.
I mean, there's so many districts of the city centre now. I mean, anywhere in the city centre would be very good. But like you say, you've got to make sure that it's the right property and you're actually allowed to do short-term lets as well. So if you can get the property for the right price inside the city centre, then yeah, it's going to work. But like you say, you need to check the lease and stuff like that. Yeah. In terms of the sort of districts on the outskirts, it depends which one. Like I said, there's so many surrounding Manchester. But yeah, it sort of depends really, doesn't it, on the travel links. So if you're just on the outskirts, how easy is it to get into the city if people wanted to?
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, if I was looking and we were starting from scratch, I would err on the side of caution. A lot of estate agents now are becoming aware of short-term lets and how good they can be if they're run proper, like if they're done correctly. And we get sent apartments all the time saying that, the short let approved and stuff like that. But actually, when you dig a little bit deeper, the leases don't allow it, and they shouldn't actually be selling them as short let approved, because they might let you do it at the start. But like you said, we've over the last few years, we know and have spoken to people who have bought properties off estate agents who have said, yeah, you can do short lets, and then a few months down the line, they've stopped them for whatever reason. So yeah, I'd definitely, if you're interested in investing, I'd make sure you do your homework correctly. And if you're not that experienced yourself, I'd definitely get the right team in place who you can trust and know about the short-term let industry. Not just an estate agent like your average high street estate agent. They're not always the best people to speak to. Yeah.
Just even if you want to do it yourself, come and ask questions. We'd be the same as a company, be the same as you guys. Even if you don't buy from us or you don't use our management, we're here, we're open, we're more than happy to answer any questions that anybody's got about short-term lets. And we're not saying this just to get business. It can be a minefield, can't it?
It is, yeah. It really can. Like I said, we've spoke to people, we've heard of people who have started, and then a few months down the line, for whatever reason, it's not worked for them. They've said it's a lot of work, it's too much work, and it is. But if you get it right, then it can be good.
Yeah. So it comes down to having the right team in place and speaking to the right people early on. And it's like, it doesn't really matter what you get into. It's about timing as well. And when you speak to the right people, obviously, once you get that correct and you've already spoken to the right people and everything's in place from the start, you're starting off right. And that's the main thing. Yeah.
And not turning your phone off at 7 o'clock at night.
That's it.
Even though you're tempted, it's a 24/7 business. So,
it is a 24/7 industry. Yeah. I think even if you were tempted to buy one or two, you really need to run them two properties like they're a business, because it is a business. It's like you said, it's 24/7.
Yeah. We've got a question from Shona saying, I need angel investors and a quick income. Got any ideas for that? Short-term let?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing about short-term lets is that you can't really scrimp and save on the deposit you require for one of these, because you will need at least a 25% deposit on one, and you can't get, and in a lot of cases with the mortgages, you will be required to put in slightly more. So when people come to me and say, well, I've got £20,000 and I want to buy a short-term let property, I normally tell them to go away and save up and get some more money together, and don't be tempted to go and buy something cheap just for the sake of getting a property. So, it's not an area that you can really get in on the cheap. But, one short-term let property from an investment standpoint can give you the returns that 5 or 6 buy-to-lets can at the moment. Yeah. So you're better actually saving up the money required for one of those, as opposed to just buying whatever fits your budget.
100%, yeah.
So, guys, you're going to stay with us for the rest of the webinar, hopefully, and give us your insights as and when. But thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we've got a lot to get through. So let's crack on. I shall introduce now Mr. Johns.
Well, we're just gonna go back to that question from Shona.
Yeah,
she's saying exactly that's why I need an angel investor. It's not something that we really dealing, providing people finance to invest in the properties. But what I would say, Shona, is contact the office and get to speak to one of our investment consultants, and we will see what we can, how we might be able to help you and certainly point you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Just going on to investing, I mean, I'm going to talk about investing in short-term let property and trying to give you a few sort of handy tips. We're going to look at some specific examples of investments that we have had in the past and what they've achieved, and really some pointers and how to what to look for in a short-term let property. Firstly, the most important thing is you can't just go out there. I mean, I think the guys at Hilltop touched on it before. You can't just go and buy a property and then turn around to a management company and say, I want you to manage this on short-term lets.
I've got a 2-bed flat in Chester.
Yeah.
Let it out, short-term lets. Let's go.
And believe me, there's hundreds of thousands of people in the UK that have done that because they bought them with buy-to-lets. The market's changed. They've not been able to make ends meet, and they've thought, I'll tell you what, I've seen this, we'll whack it on Airbnb, and it just doesn't work. In a lot of cases, the lease doesn't allow it. In a lot of other cases, it's not the right property, it's not the right quality. And what we will show you with our team here and the guys at Hilltop is that the management element is the most important thing. If you haven't got that right, you are not going to succeed in this industry. You're just not. You live and die by your reviews. And if you are not organised, you cannot take this on as a part-time hobby because you will get a rude awakening. So but let's just have a look at it. I mean, firstly, I mean, we're very select over which properties we take on. It's such a diverse area that what you're better doing is speaking to one of us, one of the investment consultants, speaking to some of the experts in our team to get advice, because not every case suits it, not every hat fits in this case. And depending on what your budget is, depending on what your financing is, depending on what your preferences are, will depend on what type of property is going to suit you. So you're better talking to us and booking in a consultation call with one of us to find a solution.
I mean, Joel, just on that, Joel's just asked, or can studios be in demand still? And in effect, yes, they can be. So can 1 bed, so can 2 beds, so can 3 beds. But again, it all comes down to location and who it's going to be for.
It's the market. It's the market. I mean, I would always prefer a 1 bed or a 2 bed to a studio on the basis that a studio, and we spoke about this, the Hilltop guys the other day, we were saying that the studios are so much like hotel rooms that you actually almost directly competing with hotels as opposed to giving the customers a home away from home. Isn't that right, guys?
That's it. Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say, actually. Studios are good. We've got studios, but the problem is they're the closest to a hotel room that you're going to get. So we have some studios, but only a few. The majority of ours are 1 beds and 2 beds, but what we've actually just started to recently sort of acquire as well is 3 bedrooms, because you're finding, like I said, with the current market, more families are travelling together. You know, they're going on holiday with their cousins, their uncles, their aunties, their grandparents, the dogs, the cats, the gerbils. So, yeah, but I would say studios can work, but I would say the building's got to have a lot of... it's got to have a lot of features, a gym, a rooftop terrace. Why is that studio better than a hotel? That's what you've got to consider. Once you start moving on to your 1 bedrooms and your 2 bedrooms, obviously they differ quite a lot from hotels then in terms of size.
Yeah, we've found the properties that have got more space for us are doing a lot better, and they're outperforming the smaller ones. So especially the 3 bedrooms, hands down, they're doing a lot better than the smaller properties. It's not to say the smaller ones aren't still doing good. they are, but especially the first quarter of this year, say, the larger properties are doing a lot better. And it doesn't need to be a 3-bed penthouse with 6 floors. You know, it can be a large 1-bed flat that's got, you know, a large kitchen and an open diner. I think people at the minute, they just want space.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of new builds that are going up at the minute, and you see them, and it's like the flipping, the tiny, you know, they're so small, and it's like, yeah, there's definitely a need for space.
Yeah, we're finding as well, if you can get a bit of outdoor space, like a balcony or anything,
Yeah,
that really is, that's something that we're finding a lot of people requesting at the moment.
pets as well is a big one. Some properties, especially some apartments in blocks, you can't bring pets. The apartments that we've got where we do allow pets, they're full with pets a lot of the time.
Joel's just asked again there, actually, would we avoid them? In the buildings where we can have pets, we do allow people to counteract the cost and the extra cleaning. We just charge more for the cleaning. It's as simple as that. They take longer to clean when people check out, but you take a security deposit and you just charge extra for the cleaning.
For the pet,
Yeah.
I mean, when we first started out, we asked the same question ourselves, was like, should we allow pets? But once we started to obviously do it and we put the right processes in place, it definitely works.
Pets is actually a good thing, because especially in the city centres, there's not that many properties where you can bring your pet, especially in an apartment block.
Yeah.
So if you've got something like that where you are allowed pets, you're definitely within a niche market there, and you can sort of capitalise on that. But just make sure you've got the right systems in place. And like I said, it's about having the team as well. And the guys there over at Residential Estates will tell you as well that when you want to do something, as long as you've got a system and the right team in place, then it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Just noticed as well, Shona mentioned that she's got 3 spare bedrooms. Any good for short-term lets? I've permission to rent them out. That suggests that she's living in the property as well. So I'm not too sure. Well,
Again, it's something that we need to take offline. Thanks for your interaction, Shona. But we need to take that offline because there are hundreds of questions we would need to ask you to check. It would depend on the type of property, how long you're there for, how you want to rent them out. Are you going to do the cleaning? What the type of property is, where the property is. There's a lot of questions that we need to ask. But we're quite willing to, spend the time to go through that with you.
We've got your email address, Shona, and we will be in contact.
Okay. And on to pets. I've got two big things on pets. One, there's certain areas where excluding pets would have a massive effect on your rentals. And one would be such as like a holiday property in the Lake District.
Yeah.
People like to take their pets away with them to such places. The other thing I do, if you've got a city apartment, I would try and find out how many other properties in the area do allow pets. If there's a lot that do allow pets, then you might want to not allow pets yourself and exclude them. But if there's absolutely no one allowing for pets, there may be an opportunity there, to actually take advantage of it. So,
well, I like the point that you just made there. If there's a lot of people allowing pets, then don't allow pets, because there'll be people that don't want a pet-friendly place.
Correct.
So it makes sense.
It's true that, if you were to spend just a quick search online, and if you filtered, I don't know, if you went onto Expedia, if you filtered properties that only allow pets, depending on the area, if it's in an urban area, I'm pretty confident it's not going to come up with that many.
Yeah.
It's like what we found in the centre of Manchester. If you were to search a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom apartment that's available for short lets, there's hardly any. I think we found one or two, which is why we've started to look more at that, because, larger properties then in the centre of Manchester, they're going to be in demand if there's no competition.
Yeah.
And it's like we said before, like the guy said, it's about knowing your market beforehand and make sure you do enough research.
Yeah. One thing on the pets as well, just to give you an example, we've got 27 apartments across 4 buildings, and in only one of them can we allow pets. So that's like the ratio that we're on, to 25% of our stock essentially. is where we can allow pets. So for us, it's a little bit of a no-brainer, because when we have clients coming to us, especially people who travel for business as well, if they've got a dog or a cat, it's
more of a home from home.
Exactly.
It's not just a hotel room, which,
Okay, so I mean, just moving on from there, just before we go on to look at some actual examples, I just wanted to say that, as I said before, we're very selective of what we take. We look at places with high occupancy, with a high demand, maybe places with low supply, places with planning restrictions, for example, like the Lake District. We look at economic growth changes. We look at commerce, where companies might be moving in, opportunities where there may be increased demand. And just bear in mind as well, when you're buying a property and it's maybe a new property to short-term lets, sometimes it can take a little bit of time for that property to bed in. So what I would say is everybody wants everything now. Remember with property investment that you can get a lot of your benefits in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And everybody I speak to looks at what the figures are now. They want to know what year 1 figures are, when actually they could be missing a trick, by not sort of focusing a little bit more long term, which is the case with most property. But anyway, if we move on to the next slide, we're just going to have a look at some specific examples of the difference that you can find between a standard AST let, assured short hold tenancy let, or long-term let, and a short-term let. This is a 1-bedroom apartment in Chester. It's not bang in the centre. It's got a 98% occupancy rate. This is a property that we've managed for a few years now. We've got a nightly rate of £100. It costs 155,000. And you've got the gross there and the deductions, which is given a net per month of nearly £1,800, which is over a 10% net yield, well over 10% net yield. But if you compare that to what you would get on a standard long-term let, you're well over £1,000 more, well over double what you would normally get. So this really shows you, and these are actual figures from the property from last year. And these are both corporate and leisure lets.
I think this one is a really good example of location and how it doesn't have to be in the centre of the city to do well. We knew this location, we sold it to the investor, and it's out of the city, but it's also within a 10-15 minute walk of the city centre.
Yeah.
So you're not in the smack bang of the noise of a Friday, Saturday night. So you're well away from that, but you're also well within easy access of the city, also of the racecourse and things like that.
Well, I don't get this obsession with a lot of people that say, I want something right bang, slap bang in the centre. If you're slap bang in the centre of a city, you've got a lot of noise. You've got parking restrictions. You're stuck in traffic most of the time. You really need to be following, access routes better. Tracking where you can park, where you're gonna drive to, where you're going in the morning, how you're gonna get there. Things like that are far more important. And these are the type of work that we do when we identify a site. We don't just look at, as the crow flies, how far is it from the town hall? It doesn't work like that. There are very good areas in most cities to invest. There's also bad areas, and it's a matter of finding out what those are and seeing where the opportunities are.
Yeah.
So we click on to the next one. The next one is Bournemouth. So this is a lady that bought from us last year, and these are quite small apartments, studio apartments in Bournemouth. They were from a renovated building. They've achieved a £98 a night, and already achieving an 87% occupancy. So this has ramped up very quickly, quicker than we thought it would. The difference between the standard lets and the short-term lets here is quite spectacular, because Bournemouth is a good market for short-term lets. And we actually have, I think Taylor's posted a video or posting a video of a testimonial from this actual customer telling us how happy she was with her purchase. And this is typical of what we do. We identify these areas because we are managing the properties afterwards. We're not going to sell you a property that doesn't perform, because then we have to answer to you. We're not passing you on to somebody else. So we work on a shared revenue basis. So that means if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for us. And we wouldn't be in business very long if we provided our customers with a load of flops. So we're very cautious about what we recommend to people, and also the figures that we forecast. We forecast figures far less than that we've actually achieved here.
I think when we did this, we were forecasting sort of between 8 to 10% as being a decent return, weren't we? Something like that.
And that's what we do, under promise and over deliver. And that's the only way to do it, because if you forecast a 10% return and you don't achieve a 10% return, the customer isn't going to be happy. And from time to time, you know, we don't get it right, and we have to work really hard in order to achieve higher occupancy levels than we're getting initially. But what you have with us is a very honest company who will actually go and work at it, as opposed to turn to you and say, sorry, it's not working, go and find another provider. You know, we've done it for a reason. We know how to make it work. We don't always make it work straight away, which is why we say it can take more than a year. You know, it can take more than 6 months to get it right. And, you know, we don't always get it right in the first 3 to 6 months.
Well, you mentioned obviously the shared revenue, and that's how we make money. And obviously, the more money or the higher nightly rate, then obviously we can get more money from that. But the other thing is the ratings and the reviews that you get. And again, if we don't get the reviews and we don't look after the property in the right way, then you won't get good reviews. People won't come back, won't book the property. We won't make any money, and nor will the landlord. So it all ties in and is all incredibly important.
Exactly. And there's a large investment from our side to getting that property online. We might make a few pound by selling the property to you. We're not going to deny that. But in order to get that property on the market and live, you know, the photographing we do, the liaising with the furnishing company, the videos and the drone footage that we do, the listing the properties on multiple platforms, you know, and all that work that's involved. There's a tremendous amount of work and cost that is involved in us getting a property to market. So we're not going to do it with a property that we don't know is going to achieve a good occupancy level. So when we're offering properties to market, you can rest assured that we've done a huge amount of work in order to make sure that works for you.
I mean, you touched on it then about bringing a property to market, and you and I have both worked in standard lettings for a long time. And I think the work involved in actually advertising and marketing a short term let is what 3-4 lines that you would do normally.
It's something we'll touch on later. But, you know, it really hits home how much more effort there is needed and how much more work there is needed to actually manage a short-term let above your standard AST. Yeah. But the rewards are there to be seen if done correctly.
I know we are going to cover this later in a bit more detail, but Susan's asked, I'm new to this, what do deductions consist of, please? Do you want to just touch on that? Because I know you're going to talk a bit more detail.
Yeah, so Susan, when we're talking deductions, what we're talking about is costs to the owner. On a standard AST, you know, the tenant will be responsible for utility bills, council tax. But when you're actually using it as a furnished holiday let, service accommodation, then the responsibility falls to the tenant or the owner themselves on it. But we will touch on that a bit later, Susan. We'll go through it in a bit more detail for you.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay, so just moving on quickly, the final one. This is one that just indicates how we sometimes need a little bit of time to ramp up. The Preston market was hit harder than any really on a short-term let basis. The properties there. These are actual figures of a property that we sold recently, and we've managed to get up to 75% occupancy at nearly £90 a night, which are actual good, fair figures for Preston. But we expect to, really be getting up around the 10% mark in this particular property. But still, even at this level, you've got a net of 1239 per year, and the AST you'd expect 900, and even if you take the net of that, if you take the service charge out and the ground rent, you're actually going to net around 800, 775 from that AST. So the difference is still quite
It's about
large.
£800.
It's £800 a month difference.
Yeah.
And actually, we've just come out of the winter months where it is slightly quieter. So actually, we expect those figures to really turn around in the summer months.
And we're looking at a net yield of their 7.5%. Most investors I know would be happy with that. If you're getting 7.5%, then and that's at the bedding in stage, and we expect it to increase. Then,
exactly.
As we said before, year one, it's about establishing the property in the market. This was a new property to the market, so you allow it time to grow. And it's customer reviews, which we'll go on to later. Your reviews online, which inspire confidence for people to book later on, so you can look to increase your prices and actually increase your occupancy rates as well.
So at 75%, this has started out well.
But we'll only get better.
Fantastic.
Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. This is just a slide of why people would invest. I'm just going to give you a few tips around in these areas. So a lot of people invest in short-term let property because of the higher rental yield and the income. My tip here would be just not to focus too much on first-year returns. If you know it's a good area, you know you're going to get good growth, and you know that there's other advantages, going for a property which is forecasting 14% returns as opposed to 10% returns, you may be choosing the wrong product. Have a look at the complete picture. So although there are huge, there's a huge attraction in higher rental returns, it's not the be all and end all. A lot of our short-term let properties are offering fantastic growth as well. The second one here is flexibility. So you've not just got the option to rent on a short-term let basis. You've got the option of in the future selling on to a homeowner, renting out on an AST basis if you want to change models. Very few people do, but you have that flexibility, and that flexibility is going to be key in future years because investors are going to demand properties that are able to be rented out on multiple rental models, not just your standard lets. So the next one here, well maintained. It's a misconception that with many people that AST properties are much better maintained than short-term let properties, and short-term let properties are basically trashed by the people that go into them.
Well, like you said, misconception. You mentioned short-term lets to people, and straight away I think their minds go to stag parties, hen parties, whatever. My property is going to get wrecked. It's not the case, sir.
No, I mean we're in these properties every day, looking after them, touching up here and there, making sure anything that's broken is fixed straight away, and people who are in there for a few days aren't going to be in there putting posters on the walls, putting shelves up and putting mirrors up, that wrecks your walls and makes the place age in no time. So just don't think that short-term let properties are going to age quicker, because actually it's quite the reverse.
I'm sure, guys, you find that as well, that the properties are kept in a really good standard generally.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you touched on it there. I mean, you'd go into some of our apartments after 6 months and the oven looks brand new, whereas a standard buy-to-let, you're getting a lot more wear and tear. And the short-term let properties get cleaned every 3 days, 4 days. If there's a long-term guest in, then we come in and do a weekly clean. So they get looked after a lot more, and it's the cleaning team as well. It's it's totally different to a buy-to-let. And if there's a small scratch on the table or there's a little pen mark on the sofa, for example, you need to know about it and you need to keep things in top condition. But that's why like the cleaning team's important as well. But yeah, the properties get looked after. And of course, you take a security deposit as well. So if there's any small damages, then, you know.
Yeah.
Well, touching on that, and you mentioned security deposit just quickly. Joel's asked there, what percentage deposit is a good idea to deter people trashing them?
Yeah, so on every booking, we take £200 as a refundable deposit.
We're 200, 250 ourselves, depending on
if it's a very busy weekend, like, and you've got a lot of guests in, for example, say like Park, if we're not actually doing Park Life weekend this year, or only in a couple of apartments, but if we were taking a booking for Park Life, where it's a massive sort of festival, then yeah, you would take a little bit more. But on the general board, it's £200.
It's very rare that we actually have to charge a security deposit from a guest because an apartment's been.
It's more been accidental damage.
It's more been accidental, and you'll find a lot of the time. Some do, some don't. But a lot of the time, people are honest and they'll tell you. They'll say, "Look, you know, we broke this chair, for example," and we'll just say, "Yeah, you know, thanks for telling us. Unfortunately, we'll have to deduct it from your security deposit." But people understand it. It's not it's completely different, you know, to a standard buy-to-let. But yeah, it's very rare which we charge the full amount.
Yeah, the properties get looked after, and I think when guests can see that they're walking into a property where the host or the owners have given it quite a lot of attention, and you can tell that the owners have spent quite a lot of time on furnishing it, and I know you'll touch on it later, Stephen. But yeah, you can, when the guests are walking into a property that looks good and it's, you know, they want to take care of it as well. And that's what we find.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of the maintenance, like you said, because the properties, because the cleaners are going in every week or even twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, they're seeing everything, they're cleaning everything, they're taking stuff out. So they're seeing small leaks, you know, things that might need tightening up. So compared to a normal buy-to-let, the maintenance is definitely less, which is hard to believe for some people, but it's true. We've got buy-to-lets ourselves, and you know, you can only request an inspection every so often. Yeah, and you know, you can only look around the rooms and stuff. Just stood back, really.
I think the problem with buy-to-lets and the difference where it is in comparison to short-term lets is with buy-to-lets, it builds up over a long period of time, and the maintenance, when you go in after 6 months or 12 months, it's
a big job.
It's built up quite a lot. Short-term lets, it gets fixed there and then when a guest checks out. So yeah.
Like you said, I think a lot of the long-term tenants, they'll have a tendency to sit on things. They'll go, "Oh, it's a minor issue. I won't tell the landlord about it." And then something else, and like you say, it all builds up. Yeah. Suddenly, after 12 months, you get the property back, and there's loads of all these issues that have built up. So yeah.
Joel's just asked a question there in the chat. Sorry, just before you move on.
I think it's one we'll come back to a bit later.
Okay.
If you had a problem with your boiler, broken tap, for example, have a full schedule booking. How do you manage this situation? Joel, we will come on to that because we're going to get into a lot more detail about the management. So we'll get to that, Joel. Don't worry.
Okay. Just finishing off the investment section. A couple of really good, important points here. Taxation benefits. Speak to one of us. We are not tax experts, but we have tax experts who we work with who can give you detailed breakdowns of what you can achieve through taxation benefits of furnished holiday let and short-term let apartments and properties. There are huge benefits, and it could totally change your idea of where you're going to invest next. So anybody looking at investing in property at the moment should be considering short-term let property. If you're not even looking at the area, if you are blanking it, you are missing a massive opportunity, and you will regret it down the line because you'll be left behind. So just even look at it. If it look at it for a short time. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But you should definitely be talking to us about it. Self-contained apartments now are more popular because of the pandemic, but it's not just the pandemic. The popularity of outdoor recreation. I mean, how many more people do you know that are cycling now that never cycled before? You know, people going on walks and people going away on short breaks. But people aren't staying in hotels. Social distancing soon killed off hotels. And the fact that people are limited in what they can do in hotels with self-contained apartments, they can check themselves in, check themselves out, they can cook their own meals, wash their own clothes. From a corporate perspective, they don't want to use hotels anymore because they have to pay for the employees' meals in the hotel, and they have to pay for huge living costs as well. So the popularity of hotels has certainly declined in comparison to the use of self-contained apartments. So that's really helped this industry. Finally, we've got a proven track record. Anybody investing in short-term let property is going to be taking a leap of faith if they've not done it before. But we can answer a lot of those questions and, you know, mitigate a lot of those perceived risks that you might have or you think you're taking. We can actually provide actual records of how some of our properties have performed as well. So finally, get in touch with us. You know, just a 10-minute call on the phone to one of our team. Speak to, you know, me, Phil, Chris, Alison, Paul, James, even you, Jason. Just spend a bit of time on the phone with them. It's not for you, it's not for you, but it's definitely something you should be looking at.
I think it's that thing coming back to there's no silly questions. Don't be squared. Come and ask questions, and that's, you know, speak to the guys over in over in Manchester as well. You know, just feel free to ask anybody any questions at all, and we'll all be more than happy to help. So is that you done?
That's me done.
That's you done, Mr.
It doesn't
Johnson.
mean I'm going to pipe in. Not going to pipe in with more investment related.
Okay. So it's quickly moving on. Getting on to the meat of tonight's webinar and why. What's involved with the management of short-term lets. Is it easy?
No, not at all, Jason.
Anybody can do it, right?
No, yeah, anyone can try it. But, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk through the management of short-term lets. We're going to give you more an overview as to what it entails. I'm sure there'll be loads of questions that could come in at any point, which we bypass. Well, we won't bypass. We'll try and answer when we can, but just ask them because it's going to be a very quick overview of it.
And when you say quick, I know you two and Lewis and Jordan could speak for hours.
It could be another 20 webinars on this one.
Very easily.
Yeah. So firstly, what are variable costs? I know this is what Susan and Tor asked about earlier. So when you're talking short-term lets, you do have your what we call fixed costs. Your fixed costs are going to be things like your TV license, your council tax, your service charge. They're not going to change no matter how occupied the property is, what your occupancy rates are. But your variable costs are directly related to your occupancy rates. So the more occupied the property is, the more your utility bills are going to go up, the more cleaning costs you're going to have, and the more management fees you'll potentially have. So you've got to balance them out. Now, what we do when we look at an investment for any of our investors, and we're looking at if it will work or not, we work on ratios of this. So that's the way we work it. And we work out about 35 to 40% of your actual gross income could actually be taken out on your costs.
Now, initially, you might think, if you didn't know anything about it, 40%, that sounds a lot.
It sounds a lot, but when you think of the potential gross income that comes in.
Yeah. Well, we've just looked at figures, those actual figures from those Chester and Bournemouth properties.
And your variable costs will also vary depending on the time of year as well. So if it's in the summer, your heating is not going to be used as much. So, you know, it's something we all... Sorry, what was that?
Might be a bit of feedback.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things that we always factor in on it. Anyway, so who's responsible for repairs? It generally runs along the same line as an AST. If a guest causes the damage, the guest will be responsible for the repairs and it will come out the damage deposit. But as we've touched on before, with the weekly cleans going on or the regular cleans going on all the time, you find that repairs are more a minimum than what's needed on it.
Well, again, we come back to tenant profile and also your minimum stay, having a 2-3
all
night
of that,
stay.
all of that adds to it.
Yeah.
You know, those weekly cleans do have a major advantage to them by having someone with their eyes and ears going in all the time, checking on it and making sure that everything is ready for the next guest.
So again, I guess it's important to get cleaners that you trust, or I know you guys mentioned it about having the team around you and a team that you can trust.
It's a key, yeah. I mean, having that team you can trust, and that, you know, your cleaners are an extension of ourselves, our housekeeping team. They're generally our eyes and ears on the properties every time, so they have to be the right people you can trust and will go in. Types of guests. Well, you know, we've touched on it really. You've got two real types of guests for it. One is your corporate stay, who are people generally city centres who are looking for somewhere for work purposes. They've relocated there for a certain period of time and they're looking just for somewhere to have, which isn't a hotel. Or you've got your leisure stays where people are going for what potentially could be a week, 2 weeks, maybe even less, maybe 3 days at a time. And they're really a type of guest. I can't think of any more. Hilltops guys, if you could think of any.
No, I mean, corporate and leisure, they're the main two. I mean, for us, if we had a choice, it'd be corporate every time because they tend to book for longer, whereas people travelling on holiday or leisure is a week, 2 weeks max. People travelling for work might need an apartment for 4 weeks. They might need it for 8 weeks. But more often than not as well, they tend to return to us as well, more than you see, you know, like your sort of guests that are travelling for leisure. But yeah, I'd say leisure, corporate, a lot of film companies as well tend to book serviced apartments as well.
Yeah, it does depend. Like you said, there's a lot of things that you can change to help. If you're only interested in corporate stays, for example, there's a lot of stuff that you can do when you're taking care of the property to actually influence those guests to, you know, to get a better chance of them actually staying. Like you touched on it, you know, the length of stay. We don't genuinely offer 2-night stays far out into the future. And we find what that happens is it leaves the calendar open for those longer term reservations from companies. But, you know, if you didn't know that starting out, you'd think, oh, I'll just open my calendar up and accept 2 and 1 night stays everywhere. And sometimes if you've not got that type of property where it's more corporate based, you know, it's best to...
Yeah, I think, like you said there, it's the minimum stay. If you're offering 2 nights, it depends on the type of property. But for us, if you're only one of the few properties that have got the full or a 2-week or a 3-week block next month available, then people travelling for business, you're one of a very few that are going to sort of appear on the searches.
Yeah.
So that's what it comes down to, really. But it's having the right team and the management, and it's knowing that as well.
Yeah, it's the experience. Like, we know now our calendar isn't full for the next couple of months into the future. We could fill it if we wanted to by opening it up for shorter stays, but we've learned to sort of, you know, our market in particular, if we hold our nerve and wait just a little bit longer, last minute you'll get companies phoning you up and they'll need places for 2-3 months.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, in terms of guests, they're probably the main two, but it's how you manage your property to attract the guests you want, which is really important. Like just because you think you bought a property that's suitable for corporate guests, it doesn't mean that you will get corporate guests. It all comes down to what you do in the background to attract them.
It's putting the right things in there as well. Like if you do want to attract the corporate guests, you need to be thinking about coffee stations. You need to be thinking about a workstation with a desk where people can actually work from the apartment as well.
Yeah. No, great point. And I think we're going to be touching on furniture, aren't we, later?
Oh, yes, we will be. We love it. So really, I mean, what does the management involve? Well, I mean, we touched on it. We've said before, this could be a whole new webinar in itself. There's so much that involves the management of it, especially the back end side of it that you don't see and you don't even consider at all on it. my history is I came from an AST background, AST property management background, and I found it quite easy compared to what goes on now. It's probably tenfold the amount of work that goes on. If you consider what you have to do, you buy your property, you've got to furnish the property. We'll touch on it later about furnishing it to the right standard and to the right kind of guest. Then you've got to look at your photography of it, making the property stand out. So when it's actually on these websites, people want to book it. Then it's putting it on the website as well. Looking at all that aspect, making sure your write-ups are correct for it, making sure people want to book it. Advertising it across other aspects as well, with social media, with your relocation agents, and going out to companies as well directly, trying to get direct bookings in from them. Shout up anyone else who's got any more on this.
All the managing of all the rates.
Yeah, managing of all the rates. We've touched on it with your pricing structure, and I know you guys you don't use for pricing structure as well. You use pricing software as well.
Yeah,
and
really
wouldn't live without it these days, I don't think.
No, you definitely need it. It's a must.
Not unless you really want a full-time job on
Yeah.
top of another full-time job. So yeah,
But it's a good point. I wouldn't recommend just purchasing software and assuming that you just press go and let it do all the work. You still need someone behind that screen who knows the market and knows what they're doing, because you still need to set up rules in that software. You still need to set it up to achieve what you want it to do. And unless you've done it before or you really know, it's going to be tricky.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Stephen said, there's so much that goes in to the management. From the second a guest books, it's all about the experience from start.
Yeah, I mean, what we've just stated there is actually just getting the property ready
Yeah.
for a guest. We haven't even discussed what a guest, what entails when a guest actually books.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is where the guest journey begins. So the guest journey really does begin when they're actually looking for that property on that website to actually book it. And then you've got the whole aspect of how do you deal with the guest from then on in, all the correspondence to the guest, taking the money from them.
Sorry, just to come back to that, you made a valid point there. I mean, I'm sure we've all, or a lot of us, if you haven't, you've booked a place on Airbnb or Booking.com, and you put your dates in, and you're suddenly presented with hundreds of choices, and you want your property to stand out and leap out.
Yeah, I mean that's the key. But that's, as I say, that's just the start of it. We'll touch on that. I think furnishing has a lot to do with that. It makes the property stand out when people are looking on these websites. But the guest experience and the guest journey is vital as well. You want to get those great reviews from the guests. You want them to leave fantastic reviews to inspire the confidence for other people to book as well. So the guest experience starts when they're booking. It's how much correspondence you send out to the guest beforehand. How do you take the money? How do you work with them to take the money? How do you do the check-in on it? How do you ensure the property is ready for the guests to check in? Making sure the guests are comfortable when they're there as well. Dealing with any issues they have. Property management in the short-term let market is a 24/7 job. I'm sure everyone will verify for that. It's certainly not one on an AST. You could generally pack up and go home at 7 o'clock and leave your tenant. Your tenant would know what to do, and your tenant could sit there and say, "Well, I've got a problem. I'll report it in the morning."
Or even, it's not that bad. I'll leave it till next week. But if somebody's only staying for 3 nights, they want that problem sorting out.
Yeah, well, as Joel said before, how do you manage something when a guest is in there? Well, it's vital that you've got a 24/7 call line. So something is always there. Someone's always there to assist the guest. That's the first and foremost thing. What may be a small problem to me, to you, to anyone else, is actually a major problem to the guest, because the guest wants everything to be 100% perfect when they're staying in this property. They paid a good price, and they want it to be perfect for them. So you've got to be reactive to them as well. Joel's question was more about a boiler breaking down and things like that. Possibly this is one of the main things why it's good to actually be with a company who has a number of properties in the area, because sometimes you may not be able to fix that boiler for 2 to 3 days. Unfortunately, that will be the case from time to time. So if you can move that guest to another property for the interim, great, you've got that, you've got that option for them. But it's really about speaking to the guest and talking them through what you're doing as well. The guest wants to be updated if they do have a problem. You want to let them know how you're dealing with that problem, make them feel that they're wanted, then, they're the most neediest person in the world, and we're going to deal with it on it. Yeah. So the guest has been in, the guest has all happened. Then you've got to secure your housekeeping team. Get your housekeeping team all in line. So actually get them going in, get them cleaning the property, being your eyes and ears. Do you have to look at the damage? Is there any damage to be taken from it? After that, you've got to sort out the deposit. And then the cycle starts again, really. But the cycle doesn't end with that guest. The cycle is still with that guest in terms of you still want to correspond with that guest, check their stay was okay, check everything was fine with it, and really entice them to rebook again or to leave reviews for you, which again is very, very vital. I'm sure I've missed loads there, lads, so if you want to jump in.
But one thing you just mentioned there about getting reviews for short-term lets are obviously, you said, are vital. They're incredibly vital, aren't they? Because that's people look at the reviews online.
People always look at the reviews online, and they want confidence in the property. And sometimes a bad review, people think a bad review, oh, that's going to be horrific. A bad review can sometimes be a positive for you if you answer it rightly. Again, it's another aspect of the property management of looking at reviews, answering the reviews rightly. If people think, okay, they fixed that problem, that's great, it's not going to come up again, you inspire confidence in it.
Yeah.
So a bad review is not always a bad thing. No. If you can turn it positive.
Yeah, it's feedback. One thing I'd say on that though is, the work starts when the guest walks through the door. Getting the bookings is the easy bit, really. The hard work starts when the guest walks through the door and they have questions. How do you work the oven? How do you work the washing machine? And it's stuff that you get quite a lot, but it's having, like I said, the team in place to answer them questions. But it's
great. Yeah, it's a great point. Your welcome packs in the property as well, making sure they're updated all the time, so the guests feel that they're being looked after as soon as they get in.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and there's so much that goes into it when someone walks into the apartment. The cleaning has to be spot on, having the right cleaning team. And it needs to be a team of cleaners as well.
You can't have a one-man band cleaner, because if they're ill, they're off, or they've gone on holiday, you're completely stuck. And also, if you change overs, you've got 3 or 4 in a day. All of a sudden, a property may not be clean for when the next guest arrives at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in that afternoon.
Well, the thing is, I've gone through a list of properties, loads of them. Something stood out to me. I've clicked, yes, I want to book that property. When I walk through that door, I want that property to look like the picture that I've clicked on. Yeah, that's the whole point.
It's making sure that the property is what they booked, and not what they've seen in a picture and they turn up and it looks absolutely nothing like it at all.
I'm just going to go to. We've had a couple of questions in. First of all, Sheg asked a while ago. Apologies, we didn't come back to you a moment ago. But you asked, when you say come in to see you for a chat, where exactly are you located? Well, Hilltops, you guys are in Manchester, and we've got the web address there, and you'll be able to find out where the guys are there, and you can make contact with them. For us, Residential Estates, we're based just outside of in Chester, in Pulford, so we're over Chester Way, and you are more than welcome to come and drop by and see us at any point.
Just give us a call and book in an appointment at any time.
Yeah. And we'll see you soon, Shag. SS asked, Johnsy, this might be one for you. Yeah. In previous examples on net returns, did you also factor in mortgage payments and insurances? And are these part of
Insurances, yes, very important. Buildings insurance is normally part of the service charge. And we always factor a small portion in for contents insurance or landlord insurance as well. In terms of mortgages are very specific to that person. A lot of our buyers pay cash. We have a lot of overseas buyers who can't mortgage. So any illustrations we do, or any illustrations that you will see on the market, will generally be without mortgage. So they'll be based on a cash purchase. If you wanted a return on investment analysis at any time, one of our consultants can help you out with that. We would pick a standard rate, but obviously those rates can change tremendously. You know, from the difference between a 2.8% 75% loan to value mortgage and a 60% 4.9% loan to value mortgage is a world of difference. So we must choose a level playing field here in order to actually analyse the properties as opposed to your ability to finance the property.
I think it's quite a new thing as well, with some mortgage companies providing short-term let products now, isn't it? That we didn't see before in the marketplace.
And they're improving all the time as well. We see a huge difference from one case to another on what you can achieve on a short-term let mortgage. And they will depend on a number of things, whether you're buying through a company, whether you're a sophisticated investor, whether you've got other property, you know, what your credit status is, a lot of things, and the property itself, more importantly.
Susan's asked, here's she corrected a newbie question. Sorry, how often does it happen that you have done all the work in checking the prospects and prices and marketing, and it doesn't work out as expected?
Well, I said from our side, isn't it? From our side, it's really that it's not the fact that it hasn't worked out. We make it work out because that's what we're there for. So we never have. There's so many variables that if we're expecting an 8% return and it's a 7.5% return, we don't think we've really missed the boat by a huge amount. But what we will do is always try and improve our service and where we target rents from in order to maximise. So if we estimate 8 and we get 8, we don't just stop there. We try for 9, we try for 10, we try for 11. So occasionally we don't hit our forecast lets, and that can happen, but we do try and constantly try and continually improve all the time.
I think one thing to mention, Susan, is when we take on a property, when they source a development at the beginning, it's not just the guys going out sourcing it without any help from the short-term let department. We spend a huge amount of time looking at the demand.
We'll review the demand. We'll review the prices as well, using the pricing software that we do use, so we know it's realistic prices that we're looking at.
Yeah. This is before we've even taken on the development.
We've already accepted the development.
Yeah.
I know Mike touched on it before, how we actually undervalue it sometimes because we'd rather overachieve on what we promised to it.
Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question, Susan. So sorry, getting back to the management. I don't want to stop you in the flow.
I think the management, there's quite a bit more we can go through. Really, I think if anyone has, there's other questions which we're going to go through now, which are frequently asked questions we get from owners. But if anyone has any other questions that they need to discuss, just put it in the text. And if we can't answer it tonight, we will come back to them and assist them.
And as we've gone, I think if you've noticed in chat, Taylor has dropped a few links there to our short-term let guides, various guides there. Feel free to download those, and hopefully there'll be answers in those. And if not, feel free to contact ourselves at any point. So moving on, frequently asked questions that we get regarding short-term lets from our clients. First one, let's get straight into them. How can I see what bookings are scheduled for my property? I've bought a property, I've given it to you guys to manage out. How can I see what bookings I've got?
All owners have access to our property management software. They can see any bookings and income for just their properties on their own. They can even add their own bookings into there as an owner booking.
Okay, so if I had a property, I can make my own booking and block it off or whatever if I wanted to,
Yeah,
and I
if you
can
want to
see
come and stay, yeah.
what other bookings I've got.
You can.
Okay, and is that for the whole year? It's not set for just
Yeah,
month or
no,
whatever.
for the
No,
entire year.
we have total transparency over our booking system. So any owner can see what's coming in at any time. Obviously, there are other providers out there who may not have the same, but that's the way we operate with total transparency on it.
Okay, fantastic. Susan's just put, sounds like a massive amount of work. So what are your fees
We'll
in
come
doing
back
all
to
this
Susan.
work?
Won't let us scare you off. Let us know.
It's already,
I'm glad you appreciate it. It is actually quite a lot of work.
when will I get paid for the bookings in my property?
We pay all the owners monthly in arrears. You won't find that with all other managing agents. Some you might have to wait a couple of months for previous bookings, but all of ours are monthly in arrears.
Okay.
That's just
So there are some out there that sort of 3 monthly or quarterly.
Yeah, and I've
whatever it
seen
is.
some
Okay.
providers who are 3 monthly, so you wait 3 months for your money to come. I think another thing that you need to consider as well is that some of these long-term corporate bookings may actually be paid 28 days in arrears as well, and companies won't acknowledge that until they actually receive the money. Sometimes that 28 days has gone on a bit longer, and you could be chasing them for the funds, but
That's what
we
we're here to.
still
we do monthly in arrears. It's a lot of work at the end of a month or just before the end of a month to make sure it's all gone through, but it's what we promise. So.
But again, that's something to consider if you're going to do it yourself. You've got to manage your finances.
You've got to manage your finances.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got a corporate property, if you've got a corporate let, you may not see the income for the first 6 weeks of their stay in there. But you've still got your bills going out, which need to be paid.
Yeah, exactly. Can I book the property to use myself at any time?
Yeah, you can do. Obviously, like we just mentioned, you can log into the back end of the property management software, make that booking in there if the calendar is free to do so, or give us a call, drop us an email. We can always check and make sure it's not potentially going to stop any other type of booking that we might have had in the pipeline coming in.
Okay. Again, check though probably because not all providers do that.
No, I think what you need to consider is some providers may want 52 weeks a year exclusivity of it.
Okay.
Some may allow you to book it for 4 weeks of the year, but it's got to be in off-peak times. We run with the idea that this is your property, this is your investment. You should use it you could use it whenever you want to. We will advise you if you have booked in a period where we feel that you may not want to book it.
You might be missing out
You
on
might
those
be
high
missing
rates
out,
or whatever. Yeah.
The guys are talking about Park Life in Manchester. You've got things like that, Chester races. Where
I've heard there's some nights in Manchester. I've heard in the past where they've got £500 a night.
yeah, there's some nights where it's £400, £500 a night.
Yeah.
So you don't want to lose out on that potentially for that booking. You really don't want to lose out on a potential long-term booking as well if you've booked it in the middle. So we can come back to you and talk to you about that and see what we can do. But always ask that question of can I book it myself at any time, because a lot of providers may say no. Just remember that for 210 days of the year, it has to be available to the general public as well. Yeah. For tax purposes.
That's a good point. Yeah. Very good. I think I missed one. No, I didn't. How will the cleaning be arranged after every guest vacates?
All our housekeepers also have their own logins and access to the property management software. They get email notifications, and we're in constant contact with all of the different teams every single day, regardless of what day of the week it is. It could even be something to do with a late checkout of a guest, an early check-in, anything along those lines. We're in constant contact with all of our housekeeping teams across the different locations.
I think it really comes back to that idea, which we mentioned before, of having that housekeeping team you can trust as well, that they'll go out and do their job. I know we'd probably say it's probably one of the most important things of the lot, wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
Having that housekeeping team that you can actually trust and will do it. We're quite lucky with our housekeeping teams that we use at residential estates. problems are very, very minimal and few and far between.
Well, like Nat just mentioned, they've got their own access. So you've got to trust them to be able to have their own access and just crack on with the job at hand.
You don't have time to micromanage them.
Yeah.
So you just need to let them go and do their job. But as long as they're aware of what they're doing. And housekeeping on service accommodation is totally different to a general clean of a property. It's completely different to it. So you've got to have someone who understands the service accommodation model as well when they're cleaning.
Who understands we're all watching Four in a Bed and running our hands across things, checking for dust now.
That's what people do these days, unfortunately. So you've just got to make sure that housekeeping team are right and doing it correctly for you. Otherwise, we're going back to it. You're going to lose your reviews.
Yeah.
They're all going to go, and then people are going to lose confidence in that property and booking that property.
I suppose it's not just the cleaning, is it? It's the presentation of the property after they've cleaned it, like make it the bed. I mean, okay, I can make a bed, but making a bed look nice when it's
it's the makeup of the bed. It's actually leaving a welcome pack for your guests, so when they arrive, they feel welcome in it. Making sure the towels are actually folded correctly and left in the right way. A little goes a long way. First impressions, we keep saying this as well. First impressions do count, and you're reliant on that housekeeping team to make sure that first impression is what they've seen on the photos as well. So that is a real big one of making sure they do clean it, and staying on top of it as well.
And they're in constant control of the linen management for making sure there's enough bedding, enough towels. For each and every changeover, there's enough there ready to go. If anything last minute, even that side of it, you don't even take into account.
Yeah, nice.
There's a lot to that side.
Will I be updated on my property and advised how I can increase my returns?
Yes, you will. With residential estates, you will. We're always open for a call at any point. We're always open to have a chat to you about how your property is doing. And what we do as a team is we actually look at our properties and which ones are performing and which ones aren't. And is there a reason why one could be performing better than the other? And if we see something that is happening like that, we will actually let other owners know as well, because it may be something they want to consider doing. But as a team, we're always open to it. I think, you can go out to these national companies where you can be treated just as a number more than anything, whereas we look at every property individually as a company, and we will continue to do that, and give everyone that same level of attention and not just concentrate on one or two. Everyone has the same level of attention.
Yeah, well, also we're working on the revenue share model. It's
Well,
in our
it's
interest.
in our interest
It's in
to
our
make
interest.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Joel's asked after everything's in place, the cleaners are a cog in this, in all this. Really, they will more or less make or break your reviews.
Joel, that's basically it. You can do everything right yourself, and the guest journey up to that point of when they check in could be absolutely perfect for them. But if you don't have that right cleaning team in place and they haven't done their job, it can all fall down straight away.
Also, Steve, what I would say there, reading into that, if I was an owner, I'd think, well, that means I can get a trustworthy cleaner and then I can do all this myself. And I don't think that's the case, really. There's a lot more to it than just.
I think we've gone through all the other things there, but the cleaner is a very vital cog in this whole thing. And you can't just. I mean, I don't like to call them cleaners. I like to call them housekeeping or operatives, because I think they do a lot more than just the clean as well. They are effectively our eyes and ears of that property.
Yeah. One thing I'd say on that as well, obviously, the cleaners are very important. If the cleaning team's not right or they're not doing the job properly, then it is going to be a major issue. But just because a guest goes into a property and it's not 100% clean, it doesn't mean that you're going to get a bad review straight away. If you speak to the guest and say, what weren't you happy with? All you do is ask the cleaning team to go back out and clean the property. And I really appreciate that you've got that level of service where the cleaning team can come back out and put the cleaning right that you weren't happy with. So just because a guest turns up and, you know, they say, I'm not happy with the cleaning, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a 1-star review straight away. It's how you react and having a team.
Definitely.
Yeah. How you react and do
Definitely.
it.
We're going back to the communication with the guest and the 24/7 communication with them.
Yeah, like we always. Yeah, once a guest is checked in, we always send out. Well, it's an automated message that gets sent out to them asking them if everything's okay with the property. Most of the time, it comes back fine. Yeah. Sometimes it's just small little things that they need or that they want extra, and as long as you've got the team to put it right, then it's fine. Fix it. Yeah. It's when the guest has got a problem, they're trying to get in touch with you. You don't answer your phone. The next day they can't get in touch with you. You've not gone to fix it. Yeah. That's when you'll start to see the bad reviews. Yeah, that's it. Like you said, it all comes back to having a team. And if you are trying to find a cleaning company, it definitely needs to be a team. You can't just go with a one-man band because, like Jordan said, they won't be able to fix the problems. Not problems, but you know, small issues when they occur, and it's how you react. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool.
Will I get assistance dealing with utility bills?
One for that.
Yes, we can help the owners with their utility bills. We're actually partnered with Utility Warehouse, so we can assist in getting your electric, gas, internet all up and running through it, with a lot of help from inside our office. We can even do it with your home bills as well. There's no restriction, but we can help with that partnership with Utility Warehouse. We can help as well with the setting up of water accounts, council tax or business rates. There's always a possibility of small business rates relief on the holiday lets as well, which can be up to 100% discount. That's definitely something worth exploring when taking on a short-term let as well.
Okay, so it's worth exploring or asking questions about that.
Yeah,
because you might be able to say
something. I know it's something Hilltops also believe in on this utility warehouse, because you frequently search which is the cheapest option, and Utility Warehouse do come up top. And if they can get assistance in joining Utility Warehouse, it's great for them.
It's quite important at the minute with rising energy costs and things like that.
Rising costs. And the other thing with Utility Warehouse is all your bills can go out in one go. So you're not waiting for multiple bills to come in and juggling plates or anything like that. You know when your bill's going to come in. You know generally what the set amount is that you're paying, and it all goes out in one go, and you get your one statement there, and you've not got 5 different things that you're looking at. You know, your internet provider, your gas, your electricity, your water, everything. You know, you can just tie it all into one bundle and do it.
Yeah, make it a bit simpler. So now we touched on this before. It was mentioned insurance. What insurance will I need? Can I just go with my standard buildings insurance?
No, you can't.
Can I just go with my standard landlord's insurance?
No, I mean there is. Most people seem to think that they're covered by traditional home or standard landlord insurance. Short-term lets is a bit different, and you need to look to the market to get the right product for you on this. You need to make sure that your furnishings are covered. And what you'll find is there's lots of different things coming to market now, which will actually talk about, say, we'll cover short-term lets, but you need to read the fine print on it as well. I've seen stuff come to market where they say, oh, yeah, we will do short-term let insurance for you, no problem at all. But then when you actually read the small print, they will only cover you when the property is occupied. Wow. So if the property is unoccupied, you are not covered at all for your furnishings and furniture.
So you've got a tenant in there, there's a leak, they leave, it's now empty, there's a leak or something like that, and suddenly you think, well, I've got insurance. But
but it's not covered if it was vacant. I mean, we had such a case a couple of years ago where in one of our blocks, a property was empty for one night and a water tank blew. And it caused a mess and actually affected 7 different apartments in there. Luckily, we managed to actually deal with the situation and save all the furnishings in the other affected apartments, because we actually drove to the property ourselves, got on hands and knees, and started mopping up the water ourselves. to prevent it getting any worse. But if that wasn't found or sourced, if that leak had occurred a bit earlier and people hadn't seen it, then, you know, it could have been catastrophic for some of our owners.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about furnishing in a minute, and you know, you could have £10,000 worth of furnishings in the apartment, and if you're not covered 24/7, 365 days a year, you're leaving yourself open for it. So you really do need to have a good shop around and actually find the right insurance for your needs. I think Taylor's going to put on a link to a company who we use in the past.
I think so, and we can always send those details.
But we can send those details out as well. But you know, we know someone who works for us, and we've actually tried them. We've trusted them. They actually work for us, and we're happy to share those details out with anyone else who would need them as well.
Yeah. But again, I think the important message is don't just assume.
If they say short-term let insurance, don't assume that is exactly what you need.
Check exactly what the policy covers.
I think I can hear the agreement over there as well. You've got to check through the fine print.
One thing I'll say on that, if you've not got time to read the full policy, then make sure you've got someone who does. Because like you touched on there, we've actually done it. We've had the wrong insurance policy in place. The touch wood, we never had to use it. It only come to light when we actually had to change the policy, and it was up for renewal. So it really is a minefield, the insurance.
So you guys were lucky in that respect.
And that's obviously, you know, the mistake that other people could make. It's one of them things that you think, oh, that insurance policy looks fine. And when you actually read it, you know, the 50 odd pages or whatever it is, you realise it's not. So it's having the knowledge which policy to use as well, which is, you know, it can take a lot of time. It can take a lot of research finding the right policy. But if you know someone like you guys who knows it's the correct one, then it'll save a lot of time. It really will.
Which is the one we use? We can put it.
I think they're going to put it in the link.
In the chat. So
and that includes, you know, people perhaps if they've been doing standard buy to let, and then they go, actually, I can do this under the lease or whatever. Let's do short term. Don't just check your insurance before doing that.
I think that's all furniture tips.
We're getting on to the most important part of the night. Furniture tips.
Furniture.
I suppose furnishings and how to deck the property out, what to do.
I mean, we've talked about this previously as well. You've got your property, you purchased it. We need to make it stand out. We need to make people want to book it. And there's tips that I've seen people have gone wrong on it, and guests have gone into the property and said, this isn't what it says on the tin. So you've got to make sure that it is right. The first thing I would always say is know your audience. Who are you going to have staying? What market are you looking at? Are you looking at that corporate let, or are you looking at the furnished holiday let? The guys at Hilltops briefly touched on it before. When they're looking at the corporate let now, they're looking at putting desks or workstations in there because people may be working from home. So having that kind of area is great for them. If you're looking at the furnished holiday let market and you're in the Lake District or in North Wales or somewhere like that, you may want coat racks, you may want shoe racks and things like that, because people are going out exploring that day. They come home and they want to put their shoes away. They don't want to be trampling around the apartment with them all the time on. So, you've got to know your audience and plan it to that part of it. Furniture packs that you can get, we use them, and I know we have some great providers who provide the furniture packs for them, but your own personal touch to them at the end, because they all look very, very similar, and adding that personal touch to it can make your property look a bit different. The key is, and I always use the phrase, it's a home from home. These properties are a home from home. You've got to make it feel like that. You've got to make the guest want to stay there and want to live there. I look at this property here. It's somewhere where I'd want to stay. I'd want to, I could feel like I could sit there and just lie back, watch TV with the family or with my friends, and I'd feel like I am at home.
Well, straight away for me, just even looking at that as a picture, they've got. Well, I mentioned they've got a picture on the wall. There's on the wall. There's a nice plant or something. As in, there's just a little extras.
They've
there
even got a clock on the wall there. Little things above the fireplace that just make it feel that someone has taken their time to have a look at it a bit more.
Yeah, it's not just your beige cream and then they're just a
furniture pack, and that's it.
Yeah.
This one here, they've taken a lot of time on it as well. This is one which is in Anglesey, and it's right by the beach. And it sounds really stupid, but what they've done is they've just actually thought about it a bit more and put a model boat on the window. And it just, as a guest and they walk in, they feel like someone's taken their time over this.
And it's only a minor thing. You're in Anglesey, though. It's a popular place for water sports and stuff like that. They've put a little model boat in there, and it's little touches like that.
It's little touches like that, and I think if a guest actually sees those little touches, they take care of the place a lot more themselves anyway.
They appreciate it.
Yeah, if they can tell that the owner has spent a lot of time on the property, then the guest will take care of it a lot more as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, it comes down to, again, that you've wowed them as well, and you want them to walk into that, and also, not only go wow from looking at the picture, do exactly the same when they walk through the door.
Yeah, you want them to walk through the door and go, this is what it said. This is exactly what I booked, and I'm happy with this.
Yeah. Like Stephen just said, though, it's the smaller things. Once they're in there that they might not see on the pictures originally, it's the smaller things that they then see when they walk in that make a huge difference as well. Like you said, the small bits of furnishings, things like that.
Yeah, I think accessories go a long way. And when we're talking accessories, we're probably talking mirrors and throws and things like that, which people may not think about. You're in a city centre apartment. It's you're with your partner, and she wants to go and get changed because you're going out for a meal. She may want a full length mirror to check her outfit out before she goes out.
I might want to do my hair.
Or you may want to do your hair and things like that. So, it's things like that. You've just got to think outside the box a bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Throws, cushions, rugs go a long way in this as well.
I've even known of putting books in or games.
People put books, games.
Again, depending on the audience, I suppose.
Again, it comes back to that. And all these things sort of tie in together. There's giving it group appeal, but not actually making it look cluttered as well. So if you're looking at the family market, you may want to get some games in for the kids and things like that, but not really rough it up too much and make it look that, this is just that there. But when we're saying giving it group appeal as well, a lot of our owners do actually think that what they want to do, they want to maximize as many people as they can have in the property as possible. So if they can fit 2 double beds and a sofa bed in the property, that's what they want to do. But you've got to consider that if you're accommodating for 6 people in there, you've got to make sure that everything is around 6 people. So that's 6 people at a table, 6 chairs around the TV. There's nothing worse than going in where 6 people are booked, but only 4 people can eat at the table at one point because they've only got a table for 4 people. And probably for 4 people.
We've got this side back as well, because you mentioned about beds and having zip link beds, and some people don't, they forget about that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand zip link beds and what it can do. Now, zip link beds are just beds that can be actually made into singles, very, very simple. They don't lack in quality, but what they do is they make it accommodating more for families, because kids don't want to share beds. They want their own single beds. So by actually putting the zip link bed in there, it's an extra option. If you've got contractors staying, sometimes contractors want economies of scale. So they will fit 4 people in a 2-bed property, no problem at all. But they all want the single beds. They don't want the 2 big burly lads sharing the same bed. So, zip link beds is a great option to put in if it fits on it. Another thing is keep all your rooms actually uniformed. So don't have one room standing out from the other. Don't make it feel like, that room's been left while all the other rooms are great. So just make sure that is the case. And don't compromise on quality. I'm sure the guys will agree on this one. You know, you've got to have good quality furniture there. There's no point in sitting there going for cheap, because that is going to break.
Spend a couple of quid and it just breaks.
Yeah,
and
spend a
then,
couple of quid, it just breaks.
Yeah, you're going to waste money. You might as well spend at the beginning, make it look good.
I mean, we're not talking go out and spend loads of money, but just good quality furniture that is going to last.
So if I had a 2-bedroom property, what would be an average furniture pack price that you'd expect?
Average furniture pack I would expect would be looking at about 5,000 to 6,000 on it if it had nothing in there whatsoever. And then you just put your accessories in afterwards. The furniture pack will provide some of the accessories, but it's that personal touch as well, and thinking outside the box that actually gives it that appeal to the guests on it.
Yeah. And again, we've got furniture providers that we deal with. I'm sure the guys there have as well. We can always provide advice on furnishings and furniture packs, and what would be required in a property. I mean, I know we get to this, so should I be putting hot tubs in?
I mean, hot tubs is in vogue at the moment. It's one thing everyone's looking for, especially in the furnished holiday let market. You've just got to consider the price of running that hot tub and the maintenance as well, because it does need to be checked and chemicals put in there every single day, which does, is time consuming for the housekeeping team and making sure that's being kept on top of all the time. But it's a great USP for people as well to have. Yeah. We've got some hot tubs in some of ours now, and people are booking it because of the hot tub.
Well, these are, I believe, these are in the Lake District.
Yeah, I mean, this one's actually one in the Lake District. Got its own private garden with the hot tub in there, and I couldn't think of anything better than sitting in that at the end of the night after a long walk around the Lake District.
Yeah.
Just sit in the hot tub and relax.
Yeah. I'm thinking I wouldn't mind one after the webinar, to be honest.
I mean, but finally, as far as I'm concerned with furnishing, it's going back to that. We keep saying it, first impressions count.
Yeah.
And just making sure that it is what the guests want and what the guests expect when they walk in there.
Jandra, before we come on to what you've asked, Joel's just put wood rather carpet for cleaning purposes as well.
Rather than carpet.
Really necessary? I'm not too
No,
sure.
it's not necessary as such. I mean, what I always try and say to our owners to stay away from sometimes the beige carpets or things like that, which can show up a bit more stains here and there, because it will happen.
So maybe a darker carpet.
But we've never seen an issue with wood rather than carpet ourselves. No, I think it's what the property looks like as well.
Yeah.
Does it look better with a wooden floor than a carpet?
It can make more sense, like you said, in the high traffic areas. If it's a family home in the Lake District, maybe in the hallway and the living room, it might make more sense to have wood floors just for cleaning, and then have carpet in the bedrooms.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's just
where the high traffic is, the wooden floor may be better, but I wouldn't just say wood all the way through.
Yeah.
The way to go.
And Jandra's asked, what do people on the panel think about Birmingham and Ashford in Kent for the short-term let market?
I think that's one for me.
I think it is.
Again, we're constantly told or asked from people, what do you think of Birmingham? What do you think of Manchester? It's not a matter of the whole city. You've got to look at a specific area within that city. Every city has good areas and bad areas. Generally speaking, Birmingham, 96,000 people migrating there from London at the moment in the finance sector. It's potentially a good short-term let market with HS2 going in as well. But you want to be on the HS2 side of the city, so around the Digbeth, Derry-Tend area, close to the Bullring, and not around the sort of Jewellery Quarter or Edgbaston and Chinese Quarter and places like that. In terms of Ashford Kent, I don't know too much about it. But again, a lot of time you are better with the smaller cities and larger towns as opposed to the larger cities, because the amount of short-term let property now available in Birmingham and Manchester, you are up against a huge market. And although there's a huge demand, there's also a huge supply. So what we do a lot of that work for you, but don't just because one seller says, oh, Birmingham and Ashford are great areas to invest at the moment. The likelihood is that they're selling in those areas, and that's why they're telling you that. So, we will tell you in any particular area that we're selling what companies we're working with in that area, where we're going to get our business from. And in most cases, we'll already have agreements with those companies. So this is much better than wet finger in the air. Oh, Birmingham, Ashford, great areas to invest. So just be very careful when sellers are telling you about a large area, like a large city is a great place to invest, because they need to be giving you more information than that. They really need to be drilling down to a very specific niche area that provides you with good growth and a good market.
Yeah. But again, Jayendra, feel free to contact us, and we'll be more than happy to.
Quite happy to have a conversation with you. Any of our investment consultants.
Yeah, and Mike's just made a good point there. A lot will depend on if the new Disneyland goes ahead in Kent or not for the performance of holiday lets there, which is a good point to make. Obviously, massive.
That's massive. It is, it does happen.
Yeah. I didn't know about that, so cheers for that one.
Yeah, on the back of that, a lot of people will speculate now, like they did with Crossrail in London, and apparently there was a Disney resort opening in Cyprus 15 years ago that never went ahead. And lots of people bought property on the back of that, and people will speculate. That can be quite dangerous. It's much better to have, those corporates in place. We're already dealing with them. They're already aware. They're already giving us feedback of which properties they want. So a lot of our decisions are based on fact and an existing business that we know is actually there.
So Mike makes a great point, and that will add a huge amount to the area. But don't go for that on the basis that might happen.
Yeah.
Have a solid plan before that.
Yeah.
And if the solid plan works, and you've got that as a bonus, the Disneyland, whatever, fantastic.
If you go for it, and another 100,000 people go for it, you're going to be one of 100,000 apartments that aren't renting out. Yeah. So it's not a position you want to be in, and it's a lot of money to invest on a gamble. So.
There we go. Hopefully that's answered you, Jayendra. So there we go. Furnishings. We're
done.
I'm done. Unless anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
If anybody's got any... or should we just leave you four and you can...
I mean, we could carry on. We could carry on forever.
Still early morning, yeah.
Unless anybody's got any further questions at this point, I think we're done for the evening. Obviously, like we said, it was an overview. We could carry on talking all night, but I'm sure people have got food to eat and beds to get to and TV to watch, etc. But first of all, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Lewis and Jordan from Hilltop Apartments there. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. It's been really great having you on. Obviously, we'll get the link in chat again, and anybody that wants to talk to you and ask questions about Manchester, I'm sure they're very much welcome to do so.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll put both of the links in the chat now, so if people want to reach out to us, they can ask anything. We'll put them in the chat now, so people can reach out.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you again, guys, for joining us, and thank you to everybody else that's been watching. We've got links there. Lewis has put their LinkedIn there, so obviously you're more than welcome to connect with them. Taylor's going to be putting a link in on the side shortly. If anybody wants to book a consultation call with one of our investment consultants, such as Mr. John's here, or others are available. And we've got, as we've said, we've had links in the chat there. Feel free to browse back through and collect any of the brochures or website links that you feel free to do so. We will be sending out a link to the replay to the webinar after the event. And yeah, we're here. Feel free to ask any questions at any point in time. And we hope that your short-term let journey is successful. So from me, yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody else for watching, and thank you guys for telling us about short-term lets.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully not scaring people along the way.
Yeah. It's all fun.
Okay, so thank you very much, and join us on the next webinar in the end of July.
Thank you. Bye. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.